Welcome, Chris Gruppetta, for joining us today. We'll be discussing the book industry locally, get an idea of your experience as a publisher, and hear your thoughts about the way forward.
Thanks for the invite.
Lovely to have you.
So, could you start by telling us just a little bit about yourself and Merlin Publishers, obviously? We'd love to hear a bit
Okay.
about you.
About myself, I've
Chris
worked
Gruppetta.
in publishing in books actually most of my life. Some detours here and there,
Okay.
as we all do. But I work as a publisher and editor, which are two different things. But
Okay.
I like the editing. If I could, no, I like both. But if I could, I'd probably stay firmly in the editing chair
Side of
all day
things.
long. But
Okay.
obviously, that is not to be. It's just because it's a more direct. There's a direct, input into the creative process. It's
Right.
lovely editing
You're a
with
bit more invested
with
aren't
an
you?
author. But obviously, there's a huge overlap when you're both
Of course.
publisher and editor. It just means that there's not as much time for editing as you would like. So nowadays, I have to delegate a lot of the editing to other editors
Okay.
who are brilliant, are even better than me, obviously. But I do miss it when I do. So I do keep the occasional editing
No, make
project.
sure you keep it going.
Yes, because it's nice, as you're saying, the
Of
direct
course.
contact.
It gives
But
you a
yes,
good feel as well.
echo. Yeah, exactly. But otherwise, yes, I mean, my role as such is as publisher to keep the publishing house, keep Merlin going, commission and source new projects, and take them all the way through development, through publication, etc., marketing, etc.
Etc. Okay, quite a lot on
Yes,
to
yes.
see through. Quite a juggling act.
Exactly. I mean, traditionally, we've always focused more on children's books.
Okay.
But we do have an imprint, like as in, or it's been around at least I think 20 years or so, of adult fiction, which is a smaller imprint for us. So the majority of our publishing remains children's books.
Right.
But it's a small imprint. I like to call it small but perfectly formed because it's. I think it's got some of Malta's most exciting and important contemporary authors on it.
Exactly.
So there's quite a few. Quite a bit of work going on there as
You're
well.
catering to the demand for that
Yes.
Exactly.
kind of literature
Yes.
and audience, which is great.
So
that's
in
it.
this case, Noah Fabri's publication would be part
Yes,
under
part-
this imprint.
absolutely. And it is very much part of what we do. Is obviously we've got our core authors. We're really proud of having people like Trevor Zara, Claire Zoppardi, and all the other authors we publish. But a lot of the excitement for me is finding new authors.
Yeah.
So someone like Noah, who sent me their manuscript, and it was so unlike anything I had seen in the local
fresh.
scene.
Yes, exactly.
Voice, the narrative, the setting. I mean, it was set mid-pandemic. The setting, Hamrun. I mean,
Wow.
I grew up in Hamrun, so I know it pretty well. But Hamrun, the multicultural, multi-ethnic Hamrun of 2025, I don't recall ever having seen it being described in local literature that
Okay.
well. So it was a breath of fresh air.
Exactly.
There's the
And it's so relatable and it
Exactly, yeah.
resonates as
There's
well.
the gender fluidity of it, which was
As well.
tackled in a very, very, very interesting way by Noah, and the use of pronouns, etc. So there was so much. So that's for me is yes, that's an example of why I do what I do. It's finding something that's exciting, and then taking it through the editing process. In that case,
Yes.
Leanne
So you
Elul.
were
No,
called
Leanne Elul
Leanne
was the
Elul.
editor on
Bravo,
it.
yeah.
Leanne did a brilliant job with Noah.
Yes.
And then seeing it through to publication, marketing, because it's quite a tricky book to market.
Yes.
And obviously the culmination was it's winning the National Book
National Book
Prize
Prize.
very recently.
Congratulations.
Yes.
To Noah first and foremost.
Of course,
But
both
yes,
of you.
but yes,
Both
that's
of
part
you.
of the job.
Exactly.
Yes. So you mentioned that this imprint started 20 years ago.
Around.
Around. So I would assume that you were the one who introduced it because you are, I believe, a second generation.
Second generation in publishing, third generation in the whole Merlin adventure. Because
Okay,
Merlin started out as a shop by my grandmother, actually, that's why it's third generation, by a woman, talking the 60s. So it wasn't that common here in Malta.
What was her name?
Mari.
Mari.
And
Prosit Mari.
yes, she started it off. No, it was, I think, very courageous, I mean, at the time, very patriarchal society, a
Most
woman
definitely.
starting a business.
Exactly.
then my dad, so second generation, but first in terms of publishing, started the publishing. Um, and then I went on. So yes, my dad's time, they already did some non-children's. It was mostly Trevor Zara, who's
Okay.
always been a Merlin author. So, and there was the occasional work by Oliver Frigeri. There were some, but on a more regular footing. Yes, I had started it. The first book in this kind of the series, but in the first kind of imprint was Claire Tsopardi's Il Lineal Hadra, the collection of short stories.
Yes.
That was the first one kind of this generation, so to speak. And then obviously many others followed. We discovered many new authors. So, for example, Claire, who at the time was very much a new author. Pierre J. Mela, who had started out with a children's book, but again started publishing fiction, adult fiction, and won every possible award there was to be won. And, many other authors, obviously, since then.
Wow.
Amazing.
What a
yeah.
journey.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
No,
What a
that's-
journey.
That is, to me, it's one of the most exciting bits, as I said
is.
earlier, about editing, discovering new voices and also working with established authors who are trying out new voices, experimenting,
Exactly.
because, sometimes it's easy to assume that an author has found a niche and there are some who do that, and
Yes.
keep, rehashing it sort of.
Uh-huh.
But the really good ones, and we mentioned Trevor, we mentioned Claire, and many others,
They explore.
keep exploring. So
Exactly.
almost every new outing of theirs is different.
Is different.
So enough, Claire wrote Linia Hadra. Then later there was Kohat Khala Semora, which was feminist short stories. Then came Castillo, which was a kind of
Yes.
almost meta detective novel.
Yes.
So
The
it
first
was,
was really
each one,
interesting,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it was ahead of its time,
Very
if
much so.
anything. So it's interesting, fascinating to be working with these authors who are constantly evolving, trying out something new, trying out something which might work a bit more, work a bit less, try to do
Exactly.
different things, and that's what keeps it, I think, interesting.
And
what
it makes
keeps,
it unique as well in
Yes.
itself.
and what keeps his job interesting at the end of the day.
Exactly.
You don't want to be editing and working on the same
No.
style all the time. You want
No.
flexibility.
In fact, I mean, I always say that one of the basics of my job is that no day, what it's
like
like,
any
because you
other,
work in a similar environment. No day is like another one.
Exactly.
Because there's always something different, a different manuscript, a different challenge, issues. Sometimes it's with editing, sometimes it's what we call legal proofing a manuscript if there's a bit of controversy, so you need to get it through a lawyer. Yeah, there's so many things. With translations, you're working with foreign agencies, with foreign editors, with Frankfurt Book Fair is coming up, which is where
Yes.
we
Frankfurt Book Fair.
Frankfurt.
Yes,
It's
You should go.
it's the biggest book fair in the world,
Wow.
followed by London, then there's Bologna for kids' books.
There's the Edinburgh one as well, which is
But the difference is Edinburgh is a readers' fair, so it's like a
fair
festival where, a bit like the Malta Festival, where readers go and source read books and choose books and listen to authors and meet authors. Frankfurt, London, Bologna are trade fairs,
Okay.
so they're not even open to the public, except in case of Frankfurt, for example. I think it's open only in the weekend, the last couple of days.
So you wouldn't go there to sell books
No.
as such? No. It's
Yes,
to-
no, it's to sell rights.
To sell
It's
rights,
It's the
okay.
meetings. In fact, the stands are tables and chairs, meeting, half-hour meetings. It's like speed dating for
Wow.
for publishers, I suppose.
Speed networking.
Speed networking, because I've literally my schedule is like every 30 minutes, like a different
Wow.
meeting on a different stand, and where you're either selling or, in my case, buying rights. So I might find an Italian novel that I like and I think has potential, so I'd meet with
How interesting.
either the publisher or the agent to buy the Maltese rights, the Maltese language rights to that manuscript. And if I do manage, then obviously I have to source a Maltese translator, translate from Italian to Maltese, etc. But the book fair is where you first of all keep abreast of new trends,
Of course.
and also find new
Opportunities
manuscripts
as well,
to buy, rights to buy. So you're not buying books as in off the shelf like we do at
Yes,
fairs here, but you're buying rights or selling rights.
Exactly.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yes.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
It's in fact it's not even they do open it to the public in the last few days, but it's
Okay.
not meant as a
The idea isn't to go
it-
there
it's
and
you can't
purchase,
if you
buy
go on a
books and
stand you can't even buy the books except for
No.
example Frankfurt. I think they let you buy books on the last couple of days to save the publishers having to take everything
That's
back.
smart.
It has a practical
Yes.
element to it.
Because it's an
Okay.
international fair, so many publishers are carrying their books back to whichever country they
Yeah.
came
They
from.
came
So
from,
it's
exactly.
easier to just send
Just-
them off, I think. But that's
Exactly.
not the main aim of the fair.
We've covered a lot of really interesting territory when it comes to the publishing industry. I mean, thanks for sharing all this super interesting
Yes,
insight.
yes.
So what do you think, distinguishes the publishing industry from other industries? I mean, I know we've already touched on a few
Ooh,
key areas.
interesting. Mela.
Other industries,
industry.
like retail.
okay.
There is an retail.
The obvious one is that we are dealing with culture, with arts and culture.
Exactly.
As against, I don't know, a business that is selling shirts or, whatever. It's a double-edged sword because we kind of fall somewhere in between. We are working in culture, but we're seen as a commercial enterprise, which we are obviously. So we're not seen as fully cultural, sadly, which is not the case. But and on the other hand, we're not seen as fully commercial because there's a cultural element,
Exactly.
which is to our detriment. So, for example, we find it very difficult as publishers to find practical, concrete funding because a lot of the funding that is meant for kind of enterprise schemes meant for commercial companies might not apply directly to us because we have a very strong cultural bent. But then a lot of culture funding is not open, or at least not directly open to us, because they see that we are not a not-for-profit cultural agency, but we are a commercial company. So we fall in between. So we have no funding, no subsidies. We're a commercial company that has to obviously pay for itself, pay for its wages, etc., to keep going. But on the other hand, you said what distinguishes publishing. Many other industries, I mean, I mentioned shirts just to mention fashion. In fashion, if you say, or whatever, you're trying out something which doesn't work, probably you would discontinue that line and just create the brands, the styles that sell. In publishing, we don't do that. We publish the books that hopefully sell, but we also, because it's kind of a mission statement of a publishing house, we publish books. So we mentioned Noah. Noah's book will never, people don't realize, even with the prize, Noah's book will never even financially, I mean, artistically, it's groundbreaking. But financially, it will never even break even. Never mind making a
Yes.
profit. So financially, I'd have been, to say it bluntly, to put it bluntly, I'd have been better off just keeping the money and going on holiday with my family with the money than publishing the
Than
book.
investing in such a
Because
publication.
I'm not even getting, if I forked out 6, 8, 10,000 euro for sake of argument on the book, I'm not even going to get them back, let alone make a profit on my investment. So investment wise, I mean,
The return on investment is
it's zero.
cultural,
It's negative.
not financial.
Exactly. But at the same time, we're not funded by any entity. We're a private company. So ultimately, we have the same argument with our auditors, with our legal people all the time. Kind of, why are you doing this? Why are you publishing that book when you know? Because commercially, business people will tell you that is crazy. If you know it's going to make a
Loss-making
loss,
instant.
it's a mush tight. You're not saying maybe. You know it's
You
going to
know,
be loss making.
you know.
So why? So, and that's why we rely on, and that brings me to the whole textbooks issue. And then when I say we, I don't mean just Merlin, all publishers in Malta definitely. A lot of what we publish is loss making. In the absence of any funding, of any subsidies, of any assistance, we need to create our own internal subsidy. So each of us, each publisher, has their little area
Yes.
that makes up the bulk of the income. That's not. There's no two ways about it. In our case, and in the case of many other local publishers, it's textbooks. So textbooks might not be the sexiest of things to publish, which says like a new groundbreaking novel.
Of course not.
Because it's textbooks, okay, it's interesting, you're teaching Maltese, you're teaching
But they're
science,
extremely
you're teaching
useful.
but no, they're useful, and to be very, very, very blunt, because they are immodestly, because they are well made, but also because they're used widely in schools. That is where you break even, you make profit, and you sell. Now, in most other companies, they would take the profit and give it out as a dividend to their shareholders, whatever. In our case, we reinvest it back into the company and use it to internally subsidize. I'm mentioning Noah's book, not because,
These other
but just because
projects,
you brought it up. All these
yes.
other projects, which aren't the one-offs, they are the majority though, because
Yes.
each company would have kind of the small social corporate, responsibility. But in our case, it's not small, it's the majority
The
of what we do.
majority, man.
So the majority of novels, of short stories, of plays, of poems, of most of what we publish is literally artistic content, which does not pay for itself. So we use the income from, in our case, textbooks for this. So if there is, if that is threatened, if the income from textbooks is threatened, many would say, it's your problem. Yes, but that income, that lost income will mean less or no publication of groundbreaking novels, of short stories, of poems. So there is that consequence to it, which is a bit sobering.
Yes. Do you feel this is the same abroad? Because I feel like this is a really local issue that we're struggling with.
It is a local issue because we're a very small, it's economy of scale. This is nobody's fault. It is what it is. We're a small country. Most of what almost everything we publish is in Maltese. So there's no direct export opportunity to be made. It's not like if you sell, if you have kidney, you can export it. This is Maltese. Yes, you could have it translated, but when it's translated, as I was saying earlier, it's no. Also, the rights are being sold. The rights belong to the author, to the author, not to us. So while I'm happy for authors to be published abroad, we get nothing out of it because it's the author who, again, they get peanuts. I'm not saying, but the royalties, translation rights go to the author. So to us, the audience is what it is, the market. So yes, it is peculiar, not just to Malta, but to many small countries. And because many people keep comparing us, for example, to Iceland, which has a similar population and where the publishing industry flourishes. But we have this blessing in many ways, but a curse in publishing, that we are bilingual. It's a blessing that we're bilingual. Even as a reader, I have access to all, English is a world language, to the millions of titles. But publishing-wise, it means, as a publisher, I am a minority in my own country. I'm publishing against the massive giants, multinational
Huge
giants that
competitors.
are Penguin, HarperCollins, the giant
Exactly.
publishers. Because in Iceland, people read English, but it's not their first reading language. By default, people read in Icelandic. In Italy, people by default read
That's
in
what I'm
Italian.
thinking about as that. So
You
if
do
you
go
go
to a
France,
bookshop.
Italy, wherever, Prague or...
In fact, you'll notice something if you go to Italy or Iceland or wherever. You'll find all the big classics, if it's Roald Dahl children's books, if it's J.K. Rowling, if it's Dan Brown, just to stay on the commercial stuff, translated into Italian. Understand?
Exactly.
Here you don't find them. Why? Because the original English is accessible. And rightly so, even I myself, if I have the option, I'll always choose to read something in its original language. I won't read Dostoevsky in Russian because I can't read Russian. But if I could, I would.
You would.
If I could, I would. But if I'm reading Roald Dahl with my kids, when they were younger, I don't know. But if I were, I'd read it in English because we have
a blessing.
So it's a blessing, but purely in terms of being a publisher, commercially, it's a curse. Because we're a minority. So in Iceland, every book that's published has, if there's a population of 400,000 people, it has a potential readership, audience, market of 400,000 people. Here in Malta, we are, our market is a minority, the minority that reads primarily in Maltese. So Malta is already tiny. The percentage of people who reads in any country will always be less because not everyone reads. But of that already small slice of the pie, you have to again split it up because the majority of people who read will read in English.
Yes.
Which again,
I myself read in English, so
I read mostly in English.
it's not again, and I'm always careful how to make this argument because it might sound like I'm criticizing. I'm not. I myself read a lot in English, and I count it as a blessing to have access to be able to read English books in the original English.
Exactly. We should be proud of that.
Absolutely, but purely as a publishing concern, that is a massive drawback that many people don't appreciate and that many other small countries don't have. So Iceland does not have it. That's why everyone mentions Iceland as a lovely. Okay, there are other factors that get people to read much more in Iceland, but almost anyone or almost any Icelandic person who reads in Iceland reads in Icelandic
Yes.
primarily, which is not the case here.
No.
So that is what
Such a
makes
unique
us
context.
almost unique, and that's why it's so tricky, and that's why maybe we publishers come across as always complaining, because we are in this unique situation.
Yes,
and
It's very
even
That's why we're here
particular. There's
talking
nothing
about
to
it.
compare
exactly
to,
no,
realistically.
and even the book festival that's coming up, it's a lovely
Yes, we're very
opportunity. I
excited.
spent
Always
5
looking
days
forward.
there that I love, but the majority of books around the festival are English books.
Yes.
Imported from the UK, I mean English. I'm not referring to English books published locally.
No, they're
But
imported.
imported from the UK, which is a reality. It's neither good nor bad, because we might come across as criticizing it. It's just a reality. But it's just a reality that in, has a great impact on our reality and on our economy of scale and on how we publish
It's
and
all
on
interconnected.
and on our budgets.
Exactly.
I mean, when I tell people that we're creating, because we're publishing a new book, and I might have a €300 budget, you know, like when I once I was making a
€300 to publish.
no, to market, sorry,
to
to
market,
market, sorry,
okay.
sorry, no, magari, no, to publish,
publish.
no, sorry, I just
€300.
mistake, no, it takes
That's
a
fine.
few thousand, sorry, to market,
Like-
to market. Sometimes you have, with bigger books, you have more, but, with a regular novel, you might have €300, €400. Like once I was giving a presentation abroad, and one of the people in the audience told me, "So is that a spreadsheet? How many zeros do I add to that?" And I was like, "No,
Oh no.
no zeros.
No
It's
zeros.
300." Because sometimes in spreadsheets they tell you in thousands. So
Exactly.
like they write 30, but it's
If only
30,000.
you could put a
If
comma and
only,
2 other zeros.
if only how much our problems would be solved. So realistically, I mean, there's only so much you can do. You run a couple of social media boosted posts,
Exactly.
and you're done with your
Immediately.
€300.
Yeah, that's it.
Immediately it's
Exactly.
gone. And again, you are limited because Maltese, you'll be limited to us.
Exactly.
So
there's
abroad, if for example Penguin puts out an advert or whoever,
It's going to reach
it's
so
going to
many
global.
people.
It's going
millions.
so
I
they
mean,
get the return.
Exactly.
the millions, exactly. I mean, I've worked for many years. I worked in a bookshop, so I was involved with the import of books. The quantities are something completely off the charts for us. You're talking millions of copies or hundreds of thousands of copies. So the income is something totally different. But that's what it is.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
So here we're saying that almost the textbooks are the saving grace for
Yes,
us.
I mean, some publishers have a different. So another publisher might have, for example, coffee table books, the
Yes.
Melitensia books that pay the bills. In our case, and in many other publishers, to be fair, case, textbooks are what pay the bills. So our issue is not, because there was a controversy a while ago.
Yes,
Papers, if I may
Article
address.
in August, yes,
Yes,
please.
if I may address that. It was absolutely not that because the government is giving out textbooks for free. That is an amazing thing that our country has.
Absolutely.
Long may it last. That students who go to state schools, has been the case for many decades now, receive all textbooks, all subjects for free, which is amazing given how much textbooks cost.
Yeah.
That is an amazing thing. Nobody was ever, and there might have been a misunderstanding, was ever even.
Okay.
It's actually good for us, because when government gives out textbooks for free, it buys them. So
Yes.
when if say it gives out, it's good actually even more than for us for book importers. So if it's chemistry, for example, if there's the chemistry textbook that state schools use, the government will issue a tender, a call for tender, and purchase them and then give them out for free. So that is amazing for book importers, for example, and for the foreign publisher. Most textbooks are foreign, and that's what the government does. It doesn't create its own. It buys them from the UK, from wherever. Even with many Maltese textbooks, let's be honest, Maltese publishers, we publish books. The government will issue a call for tender, will buy them. Our concern was that we noticed a trend for areas or branches of government to publish their own textbook.
I see.
And that was our concern.
That was your
Not
concern.
that they're giving it out for free.
No,
That's great. It's
that's
actually
great.
great for students, and it's great for us, to be honest, because
Yes.
they're actually buying them. But they were kind of reinventing the wheel and cutting out the professional publisher, as you know, as a
There's
publisher.
a system in place.
There's a system, but also there's if I may, immodestly, there's a reason that you and I are publishers. We know our job. It's like me improvising and going, here at university, I can say, listen, I mean, 35 years ago, I studied English, I did my A-level. Let me replace one of the lectures and go and teach
Exactly.
English to a postgrad.
Exactly.
It's a good analogy.
I studied English, I did my A-level. I read English all the time, but I would be hopelessly inadequate as a lecturer because I don't have the training, I don't have the experience. Now, publishing, it might seem easy, especially in this day of digital, publishing, you press a button, but there's a whole, it's a
Process.
profession, a whole process, there's decades of expertise, there's editing, there's proofreading, there's design, there's concepts behind choice
It's
of
quite
font.
interdisciplinary
And
as well.
especially, yeah, absolutely. And especially when
And
it
you need
comes,
really good people skills.
absolutely, which is already tricky.
Talking about myself.
It's already very
Talking
tricky.
about in general.
No, absolutely.
But it makes it really, really
And
challenging.
with textbooks, there's so much. So you have to make sure it's inclusive. You have to make sure the language is top notch, whether it's Maltese or English. You have to
Exactly.
make sure the content is appropriate. There's a million things to do. So
In my case, there's peer reviewing as well.
exactly.
this
So
is what
so
crucial part of the
if you've
process.
got an area of government or anyone who's not a professional publisher who are just improvising themselves and creating that.
overlooking all this
So there's all this
insight.
content that's being overlooked. So that's content wise. But then also consequence wise, as I was saying, that will mean that we as publishers are being deprived of the one source of income that can keep us going in all the other areas. So if you're going to take away from us the publishing of textbooks of Maltese science, history, whatever textbooks are published locally, because
Local
the
history,
majority are imported from overseas. If you're going to take that away from us, then we can't publish
No,
novels, poetry, short stories, anything really.
no.
So
People have to realize that when you voice your concern, doesn't mean you are complaining.
No, no,
You are voicing your concern
exactly.
based on your understanding of a context and how it's changing.
Exactly. It's
and the
definitely-
challenges that you are
exactly.
facing. So we need to stop and listen and understand. It's not about complaining because we're very quick to, go
yes,
through.
absolutely. And
that.
hence the infamous oblivion, heading towards oblivion
Yes,
comment.
the quote.
The
from
quote, yes.
article. We're heading
Towards
to
oblivion. It sounded very sci-fi. Like
Post-apocalyptic.
yes. So
Gruppetta and his
yes,
army
in my
outfit.
if only my superhero kind of cape. If only.
We're heading to
All right.
oblivion.
That will be my next profession. So it's like, that's kind of doom and gloom. Oblivion is kind of, yes, we have
It's a
these.
part of it.
We're doing our bit. We're doing more than our bit, as I hopefully explained, kind of by reinvesting the income from one area instead of keeping it ourselves, reinvesting it into books that we know will make a loss. But then we need not assistance as in subsidies, assistance as in just let us do our job.
do your
and
job, literally.
don't
Uh-huh.
take that little, I mean, I mentioned it in a million other things. So, for example, my son was recently in postgraduate education, they're getting a year of free internet. And they got a voucher, it was a government offer, and the government didn't say, okay, we're building our own internet and mobile network. They gave them the choice of the three main local internet and mobile providers, and they told them choose A, B, or C, and they give you a year of free internet. So
Yes.
the government didn't reinvent the wheel there.
No.
It said, okay, there are these service providers, we're going to offer, fantastic, they're offering a year of free internet to students, to postgraduate students.
Something they
But-
need anyway.
Exactly. But they're partnering with, they're telling them, listen, use the current providers, not creating
Local.
a network of their own.
No.
But that is, it might sound silly because you don't just create a network, an internet network like this, but
It's a good
But
comparison.
It's a
neither do you create
comparison.
a textbook.
exactly.
That's
But
the
it's
whole-
more invisible because it might seem easy to create a textbook because we have
Because it's just words, because it's just...
and with the technology, technologically it's easy to do. Even in Word, you put a few clip arts here and there.
Use ChatGPT.
Exactly. Whereas you've got as professional illustrators, professional book designers. There's so
Exactly.
much. So it's not exactly. It's not easy, but it seems easy.
Yep. That's exactly right.
It's
That's
true. It's reminding me, in
yes.
fact, of when I joined my course at the university, when I did the bachelor's.
Okay.
We were 120 students that joined English.
120.
By the second year, we were 40.
Wow.
Yeah,
Everyone has this concept, we as literature, we
Misconception.
as
Yes, exactly.
It's easy. Let's
Exactly.
just get in university.
things seem easy from
Don't-
the outside.
uh-huh.
That's often the case.
People think books are easy, I can
Yes.
write.
That's why everyone thinks they can be a writer, everyone thinks they can be a
Everyone
publisher,
can't-
everyone
yeah.
thinks they can be an illustrator. I mean, I get loads
Yes.
of manuscripts from authors who might be good as authors and tell me, I've done these sketches for an illustration. I think I can illustrate my own book, or my son, my daughter. Yes, they're sweet, they're nice, and you get the occasional genius, but mostly that's why there are professional illustrators who
Yes.
know their job, who know what kind of illustration goes in what kind of book. If we're talking
Yes,
about
exactly.
books for 4 or 5-year-olds, there are so many technical details that an illustrator will know that you and I, even if I can't
Even
draw
rough
to save my
ideas.
life, but even if I could, I wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So
So a message to whoever's watching us at the moment, please resort to collaborating with local professionals.
exactly.
Yes.
Most-
Thank you. Your child has
Message
talent.
Message delivered.
Your child has talent, but to give them some more time to develop
Exactly,
their
to develop
skills.
it, to develop it.
So on this, joyful note, where do you see the publishing industry, going in the next 5 years, 10
Okay.
years?
Earlier off camera, we were talking about doom and gloom or positivity. The doom and gloom part would say, to requote, heading towards oblivion, in the sense that it's, as you mentioned, as we've been mentioning, it's a very small market. Few people read the Maltese.
Yes.
And the further along we go, lesser people read the Maltese. Then you've got influx of foreigners, which again is not a comment, it's not a judgment, it's a reality. So obviously a foreigner will read less Maltese literature. You've got technology, so more people spending time online, less reading books, etc. All the usual arguments. So the market is becoming smaller and smaller. And without assistance, as I mentioned earlier, publishing industry is seen as kind of in between commerce and culture, but not benefiting from any of the two. So without some kind of assistance, which need not be financial assistance, even recognition. Our issue is many times that we are not recognized, we are ignored. We are called stakeholders where it benefits, but then we are not really and truly considered stakeholders, and our opinions are not asked for, or when they're asked for, are ignored, sadly. So that's the doom and gloom. The positive is that there's a lot of exciting new talent. You mentioned Noah,
There's so
Fabri, I'm
much
gonna
potential.
re-mention
So
Noah.
much.
There are so many. I come across them all the time. So much. And for such a small market, working with such tiny, minuscule budgets, I think all of us, you, all the other publishers there, authors, illustrators, editors, proofreaders, are working wonders. And there's a lot of excitement. But we must be allowed and supported in doing our job. And that support comes in a million ways. Yes, of course, financial. But as I said, in having us really as a seat at the table, not a nominal seat at the table, in having our concerns listened to, and if there is a crisis, I have to say here, because I have to mention the positive.
Yes.
During the pandemic, during COVID, obviously because bookshops were closed, shops, schools were closed, there was worldwide a crisis in book selling, obviously. The Book Council at the time stepped in with emergency book purchases and other measures that kept all us publishers afloat. That
That's
was
amazing.
an example,
Excellent.
immediate. It didn't,
Yes.
but it crucially, it didn't spend years, as sadly is sometimes the case now, of analysis and papers. Yes, of course, something has to, but it was an emergency, so it was tackled as an emergency. Now, more recently, with post-COVID, but with the war in Ukraine, etc., there's been worldwide a spike, but a dramatic spike in the cost of paper. Now, paper is the raw material for books. Many other countries took emergency action similar to the COVID. In Malta, we haven't seen anything yet. This has been like 3, almost 4 years now. We haven't seen any So that's what I mean. We need support. It has to be done immediately, as was done in time of COVID. It has to be done immediately if it's an emergency. So that's what if we are allowed and supported in doing our jobs, then I think there is, yes, an exciting time ahead
For sure.
for Maltese publishing.
For sure.
I fear that people don't really fully understand how cultural your products are. Like how much they shape society.
They exactly.
They're fixated on the retail aspect.
Yes.
But you pay to go to a museum. Don't
Exactly.
you? Like there's that
Perfect.
sense.
Perfect. That is
Why
it.
wouldn't you pay to watch a play? You do pay to watch a play.
That
There's
is
this-
exactly it.
How
That
much
is
would you pay to buy a book?
exactly. That is why I mentioned that we are seen by the as too commercial for culture and too cultural for commerce, which is crazy. As you're saying, nobody doubts. I'm going to quote your example because it's perfect. Nobody doubts the cultural value of a museum, but yes, a museum charges
You pay, you go to the
fees.
gift shop.
If there's a gift shop, if there's a cafe, they either run it or they have a franchise and they get income on it. Rightly so. Theater. Theater is something, if I may mention this example, Maltese theater. I remember I used to be on the outskirts of it and used to love it a lot. I still love it a lot. 20 plus years ago, it was considered as dying culture industry. Theaters used to be, I remember going to the Teatro Manuel, it means almost empty. It used to be because they had tiny budgets. There was an investment, lots with Teatro Malta, with lots of investment. Now there's much with a lot of but
scene is
because
booming.
but because there's been a lot of investment. So
That's it. And spinning
I
off.
driving here, I see billboards for plays, which is amazing. But billboards cost money. There is no way on earth that you can have a billboard for a book. No way on earth in Malta. So there's been an injection of funding, amazingly done in theatre. So hats off. But that shows that if we want what can seem like a dying industry 20, 30 years ago to be the flourishing cultural area that theatre is now, was due to, you see, even plays, the performers put up recently, they definitely cost so much money. That is
Production
definite.
values are
That
very
is
high, yeah?
definitely not being recouped purely by the
Ticket sales,
tickets. It's definitely because there's all sorts of funding going on, which is amazing. But my point is, there needs to be this kind of clear direction and investment, long-term investment.
And roll it out across all
Exactly.
cultural.
Because otherwise you're going to say, yes, Maltese
areas.
book is dying, people don't read the Maltese. Yes, people didn't used to go to the Maltese theatre either.
Exactly.
I
we
remember
need to have
going
that
to
energy.
an empty Teatro Manuel to watch
Wow.
plays.
Yes.
How
So
sad.
but it's been reversed. Mux kombinazzjoni, it didn't just happen, it just
As a
ara.
conscious.
There was a deliberate,
takes effort.
long-term, concerted effort and financial investment
Exactly.
in the longevity and the survival of theatre. And the same thing needs to be done
Long-term
for
planning, yeah.
literature, for publishing.
Absolutely. Agreed. Very good.
That's
So, shall we end it more positively? Well, it has been very
Yes,
positive.
yes.
huh?
I think we've balanced
very,
it.
very
I
positive.
I think we've balanced
We've
it.
covered
Yes,
a lot
yes.
of interesting areas, all interconnected. So thank you for
I enjoyed
sharing
this.
your
I actually enjoyed
insights.
this a lot. Yes, I enjoyed this. So
It's very important to
Yes.
have this discussion and have a balance
Yes.
between all sides. We have to understand the full picture.
and as
you know?
we've been saying, if I might kind of wrap up with
Yes,
this,
please.
it's not us versus them.
No.
Many times it is depicted even wrongly. So as we're not. If I'm saying there's a problem with support of literature of publishing, I'm not criticizing. I'm not criticizing government. I'm not criticizing authorities. I'm just pointing out a problem.
Exactly.
Then it becomes criticism, yes. If I'm pointing out the problem repeatedly and entities do not take action, then yes, it becomes
yes, it
criticism.
becomes a criticism.
But in
Voicing your
origin,
concern doesn't mean
exactly,
complaining.
and as you said it perfectly earlier, voicing your concern, saying, guys, there's a problem here. We need to address this. If we want Maltese literature, the amazing texts being written by authors to be published, to be promoted, to be professionally edited, designed, printed, etc., then we need support, investment, we need something to turn this industry around, we need to put our heads together, then yes, that is voicing an opinion. It becomes criticism, yes, if that opinion is then repeatedly ignored. But if
overlooked, yeah.
so, please do not assume that if a publisher, if an author is complaining, we are complaining as in attacking somebody. We are pointing out a problem. It's a cry for help, if anything. We're saying,
Exactly.
listen, guys, can we put our heads together and solve this and take a leaf out of what happened in theatre to make it flourish again?
Exactly. That's an
Yes.
excellent example.
Yes.
Joining forces.
Exactly.
In fact, on that note, a lot of actors and actresses have come out now in recent days because
Yes.
of this resurgence. So, do you have any advice for people who are maybe on the fence of whether or not they should get into writing, become editors? People who are excited, who were bookworms, for example,
Yes.
growing up,
Like
and
us.
want exactly like us. I mean,
Look, it's as I said, from a literary point of view, it's an exciting time, yes, to be a Maltese author or editor or whatever, because things are, I mean, a few years ago, relatively a few years ago, censorship was a thing locally. So many subjects were taboo. A book, even a book like Noah's, I keep mentioning Noah's because you brought it up and it's a good example.
Yeah.
Good example.
A book like Noah's would not have been published because of some content.
Yes.
Nowadays, everything is being written out. There's another kind of maybe more insidious self-censorship, but that's a different subject altogether. What I mean is that, if you go back a few decades, publishing Maltese writing mostly tended to circle around a few subjects, a few areas, with few exceptions, obviously. Nowadays, anything and everything is being written about. Same, I mean, when people say, I can't find anything I like in Maltese, I tell them, look harder.
Exactly.
Look harder.
How?
Because nowadays, any genre, from sci-fi to romantasy to historical fiction to
There's awareness
thrillers,
now.
anything
So
you're
much.
interested in, you will find.
Of
So
course.
it is a very exciting time to be a writer, yes. Sadly, it's a bit trickier to get published because the industry is in the situation it is in. So all of us have had to, hopefully temporarily, cut back on. We had to reduce the number of books we publish. We've had to pause publishing of certain areas. For example, picture books have become too expensive to publish. So we're kind
A
of,
shame, huh?
in our
shame.
case, we're kind of putting a pause on them. Hopefully
Not for long.
not
huh?
forever,
Please.
but it's the market. That's where the market
That's it,
needs
yeah,
assistance
so,
because the costs are what they are. But in terms for authors, for publishers, it isn't. For editors, it's an exciting time because
much so.
there's
For sure.
more opportunities, more freedom to write about what you want to write, and more professionalism around. I think than was the case ever in the past.
Yes.
That's true.
I feel that is the
Excellent.
case.
Yes, it
I,
is, very
I do
much
feel
so.
like things are changing.
Yes.
It's exciting.
When I had joined the course of English, I don't know if it was the same for you. Like the only avenue was, all right, you're going to be a teacher.
I challenged that right from the start.
Immediately, I was
we
like,
did. We did.
I want to
Yes.
work in books. Like, why would I?
I got
Oh,
into
but there's no
marketing,
money in
communications,
books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
that
money
is
in
still
books.
the case, but
But-
there's so much more that can, and then
There's
there's
wiggle room. We can
there's
find a way.
online, and as long as one is realistic. And again, I keep mentioning the example of theater. Theater, I mean, actors, again, going back, used to be paid peanuts. I don't know what situation is nowadays, but when you look at these, productions that cost tens of thousands of euro, then you say there is funding, so there is the possibility to improve.
There is a
So
way.
there is a way. It just
Definitely.
needs a commitment, a long-term commitment towards the survival of this industry, in this case, literature and publishing.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm
Anything
hopeful
else?
that the strategy
The
strategy
will
will
be implemented.
help.
Exactly.
It
Help
needs to
with
be
this.
much more concrete, I think, than what
Yes.
it is. At the moment, it's kind of a wish list. I'm
Yes,
afraid.
yeah.
I feel it's a wish list,
Yes.
which is a good start. There are some very valid
But there
points
have
in
to
it.
be
But
actionable items
actionable
now.
items
And
with
to-
targets, and with, okay, this year we're going to
achievable
tackle
goals.
this.
Those targets.
Because
that's
it's
what
all
we
well
need.
and good to have a
It's
wish
all
list.
well
It's a
and
good
good.
first
Something to
step.
fall back on,
but
to guide you.
A wish list doesn't pay the bills
No.
for publishers.
I wish.
Doesn't pay royalties for authors, for fees for illustrators, for editors. So there needs to be now the next step a bit urgently.
Yes.
True.
A big push.
Very much so.
Exactly.
Anything else you wish to share with our audience?
Oh, I think I've blabbed on for quite a bit.
It was a very interesting conversation.
Yes.
Thank you
I
once
enjoyed
again
it very
for
much. Thank you.
joining us today.
Thank you,
Yes.
both of you.
Thank you for joining
you.
us.